For nearly a year, the brave men and women of the IDF have been systematically crushing Hamas's terror army that once ruled Gaza. On October 7th, the day of that invasion into Israel, that terror army numbered nearly 40,000 terrorists. It was armed with more than 15,000 rockets. It had 350 miles of terror tunnels, an underground network bigger than the New York subway system, which they used to wreak havoc above and below ground. A year later, the IDF has killed or captured more than half of these terrorists, destroyed over 90% of their rocket arsenal, and eliminated the key segments of their terror tunnel network. In major military operations, a future of hope, make sure it doesn't happen. All of Hamas's terror battalions, 23 out of 24. Will it be the blessings of the IDF has killed or captured more than half of these terrorists, destroyed over 90% of their rocket arsenal.
Oh, wow. So that's very interesting. So he's saying that the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, has killed about 20,000 terrorists. And that's a number that we haven't heard yet. He said about, so, it could be 18 or 16, but that's a very high number that we have not heard yet. And that's very promising.
And eliminated the key segments of their terror tunnel network. In major military operations, we destroyed nearly all of Hamas's terror battalions, 23 out of 24 battalions. Now, to complete our victory, we are focused on mopping up Hamas's remaining fighting capabilities. We are taking out senior terrorist commanders and destroying remaining terrorist infrastructure. But all the while, and I'll say this one more time, we remain focused on our sacred mission, bringing our hostages home, and we will not stop until that mission is complete.
He has to say that for the rest of the world to not label him as this disgusting tyrant, when in reality, it's not that crazy of a thing. You have to focus on Hamas. At the end of the day, getting the hostages back is great, but in order to have peace for the rest of your people, the millions and millions of Jews who live in Israel, you need to focus on destroying Hamas. He understands that. He just is basically parroting to the rest of the world, we're still very focused on the hostages, when in reality, it's impossible to focus on the hostages and destroying Hamas at the same time. You need to do one, and then hopefully you can also get hostages in the process, like they've done a few rescue missions already.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, even with Hamas's greatly diminished military capability, the terrorists still exercise some governing power in Gaza by stealing the food that we enable aid agencies to bring into Gaza. Hamas steals the food, and then they hike the prices. They feed their bellies, and then they fill their coffers with money that they extort from their own people. They sell the stolen food at exorbitant prices. And that's how they stay in power. Well, this too has to end, and we're working to bring it to an end.
Gotta love that. When he gets into the details and we use his graphic imagery, he's great at describing. And he did the same thing with Queers for Palestine. But he knows what's up. He knows what's going on, and he knows what resonates with people. And bringing up that example of Hamas basically stealing food from Gazans makes them the oppressor, and them and Israel the liberation force trying to stop that oppression.
And the reason is simple. Because if Hamas stays in power, it will regroup, rearm, and attack Israel again and again and again, as it is vowed to do. So Hamas has got to go. Just imagine For those who say, well, Hamas has to stay, it has to be part of a post-war Gaza, imagine in a post-war situation in World War II, imagine allowing the defeated Nazis in 1945 to rebuild Germany. It's inconceivable. It's ridiculous. It didn't happen then. It's not going to happen now.
I wonder what would happen if he said, make Gaza Jewish again. That's what he should say. And that would be crazy. I don't know what would happen in the UN. I think he might be arrested.
This is why Israel will reject any rule for Hamas in a post-war Gaza. We don't seek to resettle Gaza. What we seek is a demilitarized and de-radicalized Gaza. Only then can we ensure that this round of fighting will be the last round of fighting. We are ready to work with regional and other partners to support a local civilian administration in Gaza committed to peaceful coexistence. As for the hostages, I have a...
Okay, that's just a joke. That's a joke. You're never going to get, a civilian population in Gaza that is sympathetic to Israel. You're never going to get a non-jihadist government in Gaza. It's just not going to happen. If you want Gaza to not attack you, you have to rule Gaza. They need to take it, annex it, or whatever, and make it part of Israel and give those people decent rights and upward mobility and show them another path, because you can't, it's like they say, the sick man can't cure himself. The guy who has mental illness, he needs help. He needs to go to a therapist. He needs to, do some other things, but it's never going to happen. If you put in a civilian population or some sort of government, because in a few years it's going to turn radical, within a few years.
A message for the Hamas captors. Let them go. Let them go. All of them. Those alive today must be returned.
I think maybe he's not saying bring them home, because it's an anti-Netanyahu organization.
Turned alive. And the remains of those whom you brutally killed must be returned to their families. Those families here with us today and others in Israel deserve to have a resting place for their loved ones, a place where they can grieve and remember them. This war, ladies and gentlemen, this war can come to an end now. All that has to happen is for Hamas to surrender, lay down its arms, and release all the hostages. But if they don't, we will fight until we achieve victory, total victory. There is no substitute for it.